Have you ever felt that? Like you're standing outside a brightly lit window, watching a party you desperately want to join, but you just can't.
Yeah, that feeling of being excluded.
Exactly. And when that party is about connection, romance, maybe intimacy, that feeling of being on the outside looking in, well, it can become this really deep, painful thing, a kind of silent geography of frustration.
A profound state of unfulfilled desire, absolutely. And, that's really what we're digging into today. It's fascinating, actually, that the term everyone knows now, incel.
Right.
Well, the word itself was originally coined by a woman. Her name was Elena. And her idea was much broader, much more gentle, really.
Gentle. How so?
She just meant anyone, any gender, didn't matter, who felt lonely, who maybe hadn't had sex or been in a relationship for a long time.
Yeah.
It was meant to capture this shared, very human feeling of loneliness.
Okay, wow. That's really different from how we hear it used now.
Completely different. That original inclusive idea, it's been totally overshadowed.
Yeah, today incel is short for involuntarily celibate, but it mostly points to, well, online groups of men, right? Often on places like Reddit.
Exactly. And it's tied to this intense frustration, sometimes real hostility about not being able to form relationships. The meaning is narrowed, and honestly, it's become quite toxic.
So our mission today really is to kind of step back and look at the parallel experience, the female side of this coin, the femcel phenomenon.
Precisely. Femcel refers to women who, express feeling deeply undesirable, rejected, isolated. They're experiencing that same core loneliness, that same unfulfilled need.
But the way they see it is different.
Yes, the lens is different. How they explain their frustration, the reasons they feel shut out, it's often very gendered. They feel the dating market is closed off to them, but not by their own choice.
Let's start there, though, with what they do share. That emotional core, because isn't that the bedrock of this whole thing?
It really is. Both groups, incels and femcels, they talk a lot about romantic and sexual frustration. And underneath that, you often find these really deep feelings of fear, inadequacy, like they're fundamentally worthless.
That shared anxiety.
Yeah.
That maybe they just aren't good enough, not good enough to have the connections they want.
Yeah, and this isn't just like a fringe feeling. Researchers actually did this huge study. They looked at over 24,000 posts from an online female community focused on these issues.
Wow, 24,000. That's a lot of voices.
It is. And they specifically coded, I think, about 1,200 posts that use keywords like sex, power, frustration, even revenge.
It's really getting into the intense stuff.
Definitely. It shows this isn't just a few people feeling down, it's a large-scale expression of pain. And what really stands out is how that frustration gets directed.
Okay, so it's not just general unhappiness. There's a specific target.
Well, a key grievance that came up again and again was sexual frustration tied to not finding high-quality partners. That phrase, high quality, is important.
Right. It implies it's not just any connection they're missing, but a specific kind of connection.
Exactly, the right kind of intimacy. And this often leads to this really bleak outlook, this fatalism. We found one quote that it hits hard.
What was it?
It said, "A generous, attentive, even understanding lover does not exist for ugly femcels."
Oof. That's
No.
incredibly harsh. And that self-labeling ugly femcels.
Devastating, isn't it? It links that basic human need, wanting a generous, attentive partner, directly to a perceived physical failing. Which brings us right to the specific issues that tend to differentiate the female experience here.
Okay.
Both groups feel rejected, sure. But women identifying as femcels, they talk constantly about pre-privilege. There's this deep resentment there.
A feeling that looks are everything.
Pretty much. They feel the main reason they're excluded is because they aren't physically attractive enough or maybe not young enough by society's standards.
It's interesting how the perceived measures of desirability seem to differ, isn't it? When you look at the stereotypes, at least.
Absolutely. The sources suggest men might feel judged on things like height, income, status, things that are maybe more external, sometimes achievable, like trophies you can earn.
Right. Things you can potentially change or acquire.
Exactly. But for women who identify this way, the feeling is often that they're judged primarily on immediate, visible things. Weight, makeup, clothes, style, and crucially, age.
Things that are much harder to change or feel more fundamental, maybe, and are constantly compared to media ideals.
Yes. And those ideals are often just ridiculously narrow and unattainable. So if you zoom out, this whole femcel identity, while often toxic in its expression, it really does shine a light on these deeply embedded societal pressures on women.
So the crucial point here is, these toxic beauty standards, they aren't really about the individual's worth, are they? They're more a reflection of what society or parts of it value.
Precisely. And when women feel locked out of romance because they don't meet these super restrictive standards, well, identifying as a femcel can almost become a way to cope, a label for that exclusion.
Like saying, okay, I see the rules of this game. They're rigged against me, and I'm acknowledging I can't win.
Exactly. It's a way of naming the perceived injustice. And that search for why the game feels rigged, that leads us into the ideology behind it.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really interesting, ideologically speaking. We need to talk about the pink pill.
Right. So similar to the red pill concept in some male online spaces,
Which claims to reveal hidden truths about dating and gender.
the pink pill does something parallel for this female group. It's presented as this belief system that unveils harsh realities about gender dynamics, dating, society truths they believe are deliberately ignored or hidden by the mainstream.
Okay, so what are these harsh truths, according to the pink pill?
Well, it's pretty bleak, honestly. The core idea is that women who aren't considered conventionally attractive or desirable are basically permanent victims of society's ingrained beauty standards.
Permanent victims.
Yeah.
Sounds incredibly fatalistic.
It is. The philosophy essentially says, accept this reality. Accept that the deck is stacked against you. Don't fool yourself with positivity or self-help. Your loneliness is structural. It's inevitable.
Wow. Is there any suggested way out of that? Or is acceptance the main point? Because here's where it gets really contradictory, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, you often hear in male incel circles this idea that women hold all the power, right? Infinite sexual choice, hypergamy, deciding everything.
Yep, the idea that female choice dictates the market.
But femcels argue the complete opposite. They say they're the powerless ones, totally trapped by these narrow beauty standards that men enforce, limiting their options to almost nothing.
It's a total conflict over who's actually constrained, a perception war over the dating market rules.
So both sides feel like victims of the system.
Profoundly victimized, yes. But they point the finger in opposite directions. Male groups might blame female nature or biology. Female groups often blame rigid aesthetic standards and male shallowness. Everyone feels wronged.
Okay, so this bleak ideology, how does it actually look and feel? How is it expressed? Let's shift to the aesthetic side of things. Sad girl core.
Ah, yes. Sad girl core, you probably picture it instantly.
Yeah, like those melancholic Lana Del Rey edits or
Mhm.
Billie Eilish vibes you see on TikTok, Tumblr.
Yeah.
That kind of moody aesthetic.
Exactly. But it's more than just a look or a playlist. The sources describe sad girl core as basically an extension of this femcel culture. It's a public expression of, well, female angst, rejection, feeling disillusioned with men, with relationships, with everything.
No, it's channeling that inner feeling into an outward style.
Yes, but this is where the mental health aspect becomes really concerning. The culture can end up romanticizing loneliness, even romanticizing being toxic or pathetic in relation to dating.
Romanticizing the pain instead of trying to move through it.
Yeah.
Sort of. And while the aesthetic might validate genuine feelings of sadness or worthlessness, constantly immersing yourself in that identity, defining yourself by it, it can feed into serious mental health issues. We see links to depression, social anxiety, reinforced by the culture itself.
It's like the difference between listening to a sad song to process something and deciding that sad song is your entire life story forever.
Well put. And this leads us to maybe the biggest shared problem for both incel and femcel online cultures, that negative feedback loop.
Okay, explain that.
What we see in a lot of the online femcel content is that this deep-seated resentment about sex, relationships, rejection, it almost always gets channeled outward. The blame is placed entirely on men or on society as a whole.
So, very little personal accountability, maybe. It's always someone else's fault.
It often trends that way. And this constant externalizing of blame, combined with shared anger, turns these online spaces into really potent, often toxic echo chambers.
Right, where everyone just agrees and reinforces the negative views.
Exactly. They amplify the pessimism. They reinforce black and white thinking you're either hot and desirable or you're ugly and worthless, no in between. And it cements this fatalism, this belief that meaningful connection is just impossible for them.
So leaning into the culture just makes everything worse.
It really can. It becomes this endless cycle. It can worsen existing mental health problems and just lock people into these feelings of resentment, anger, sometimes even hatred towards the system or the gender they feel has trapped them.
So we've traced this journey today, starting from a term that was originally meant to be, well, kind of gentle and inclusive,
Just about shared human loneliness.
through the rise of these specific, often quite harsh ideologies like the pink pill, the visual language of sad girl core, all the way to these really toxic online dynamics. It's a whole culture built around unfulfilled desire and feeling crushed by societal expectations, creating these parallel worlds of deep disappointment.
And it's that shared foundation, that shared disappointment that leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe chew on.
Okay, let's hear it.
If both the male and female involuntary celibacy cultures, if they share such similar bleak outlooks, this fatalism, this tendency towards toxic echo chambers, these feelings of being utterly constrained, does that maybe raise a bigger question?
Which is?
Is the fundamental conflict really about gender dynamics? Or is it perhaps something deeper? Is it more about the universal human response to profound social rejection and that desperate, aching search for belonging, especially in a world that feels increasingly disconnected and fragmented for everyone?